All right, I did this once before already. This is my second time doing it. The first time I had no audio, so I had a little practice. So I have an immigration argument. My argument is about immigration. My argument is this. My thesis is um, the entry process to the United States currently is inadequate. Immigrants should be allowed to enter the United States via a more easily accessible option process. Meanwhile, illegal immigration should remain illegal because illegal immigration is dangerous for the migrant to be attempting. That's like my thesis with what I'm going to be talking about. So, hang on. Where did my face go? Hang on. I gotta bring this with me to number two. Oh, it's not coming. Alright, I'll just create a new one real quick. 1 second. There we go. Alright, I'm back. So, um, there we go. So, immigration. Immigration is when you move to somewhere with the intent to live there, tend to stay there. That's immigrating, or you're an immigrant if you do that. Migrants and migration is when you just simply are moving, you're just passing through a place. So, um, the most important thing is in media, you'll hear a lot that you'll hear a lot the word migrants are vilified. The idea that they talk a lot about like migrants from South America coming up through Central America, they'll call it a migrant crisis. They're vilified as in they're like criminals, made out to be criminals, made out to be bad people, when in reality, a lot of them are just families seeking security or an opportunity. And as the United States, land of opportunities, we should be able to provide this opportunity, at least the chance to these people. All right, and then I gotta really quickly do that again. All right, so we should change the laws. We need to create a better system. The system that we have in place, as I said, was inadequate. It does not allow for these people to have any other option than to illegally immigrate. They should be able to go to the system that the United States has set up and reliably gain entry, or at least get the opportunity to gain entry. The system we have today, it requires a long wait period and fees and a whole bunch of requirements, and so it's easier for people just to attempt the illegal immigration process, which is very dangerous and should not be. The United States should not condone. So obviously, the first thing that it needs is they need to make the requirements to enter the United States easier. There shouldn't be so many requirements. Um, they should also give the process, the people who are administering the process, better funding, and we should only people that we shouldn't allow in are people with malice intent once here in the United States and criminals. People who come to the United States should have the understanding that they need to participate in our system that we have already established here. So, keeping illegal immigration illegal is important. Firstly, it's dangerous for the migrant, and we shouldn't condone that kind of activity. Um, so, I'm going to talk about three different parts of the world that have large amounts of migrants pass through them. Firstly, in South America, the Darien Gap, which is a section of undeveloped jungle. There's nothing out there. There's no roads, no towns, nothing. It's called the Darien Gap. It's in between Colombia and Panama. The safest method to achieve going north from South America would be take a boat from Colombia to Panama. However, a lot of people don't have the option or can't afford to take a boat from Colombia to Panama, so they must walk through the Darien Gap. Firstly, as a migrant, you are homeless while you're moving, and you have all your possessions on you. So you're very vulnerable, sleeping on the street with all your possessions. Secondly, this particular part of the jungle has narco traffickers, individuals selling drugs, and also far left extremists known as FARC, both of whom are known to conduct regular kidnappings for ransoms, robberies, and worse, murders, killings, etc. So it's a very dangerous process for the migrant to go through the Darien Gap. Um, on top of it just being a jungle, so you have wildlife, dangerous terrain, disease, lack of food, lack of clean water, etc. So it's incredibly difficult, and people people are doing this journey with families, small children, etc. It's not. It just makes the journey more dangerous. Secondly, you have the Mexican American border. The Mexican American border is one of the most so many people go across that border legally and illegally. Um, Obviously, you have cartels bringing cartels operate in a few functions along the borders. Firstly, the one that we know the most for is the bringing of drugs in, which sometimes they will disguise themselves as migrants in order to better hide and conceal the drugs to get them in, which makes our job to distinguish who's good and who's bad even more difficult and require a more thorough and longer process. Also, we should combat them to the fullest extent of the law, narco traffickers. Cartels also operate as human traffickers in the function of coyotes. Coyotes are individuals who have a good understanding of the area around the border. Crossing into the United States, you have two options. Either you can enter via the Rio Grande or through one of the many deserts along the southern United States. To take the Rio Grande at certain parts is very safe because it has very small, slow flowing, it's very easy to do. However, those parts of the river are also the most monitored by Border Patrol, and the highly likelihood of getting captured exists along those sections of part of the river. The more dangerous sections of the river are not as well secured or patrolled, and some people attempt to go across those parts of the river, sometimes resulting in drownings. The desert provides a whole different set of dangers. Firstly, the coyotes that bring you across the border aren't good people. They're cartel members, and so they will potentially they'll treat you first off. They treat the people they're transporting like cargo. They employ robberies, beatings. They're cruel, and sometimes they just leave them in the desert with no supplies and don't know where to go. And hopefully they get found by border patrol. Otherwise, they end up dead in the desert. So we need to prevent that all of that, the human trafficking, drug trafficking. We need to prevent people risking their lives to come to the United States. Should not have to risk their life to attempt to come to the United States. We should provide the opportunity to at least try to come to the United States first. Um, and then obviously, one misconception that we have about Border Patrol, especially along that part of the world, is that they're the bad guys, that they're going around rounding up people. A lot of what they do actually is rescue missions. A lot of times it is people who are drowning in the Rio Grande, and it is people who are stranded in the desert that they're saving. I mean, that's pretty common. Um, all right, that brings me to the next thing. So, reasons. I'm going to cover reasons with my face. I'm going to try to. All right. So, what I didn't mention about the last, I said I mentioned three different places. So far, I mentioned two. I mentioned the Darien Gap and the Mexican border, but the last place is the Mediterranean from northern Africa to southern Europe. This is a particularly dangerous route. Firstly, you take a boat. Oftentimes, the boats are smugglers' boats, which are tends to be large, a lot of surface area, so they can transport more stuff, and really, really strong motors, so they can go quickly and get away from any type of people following them, chasing them, and whatnot. One problem is that the people who own the boats will attempt to put as many migrants as possible onto the boats, um, and they won't give them proper safety equipment. If I go back a couple of slides, I go back to the first one. You can see here these guys are using on the top slide, on the top photo. You can see they're using what looks like maybe tires, some form of tire or something, as flotation devices. And also they're very crammed in right there too. So you can see what happens when on the right side when you have too many people on a boat, it capsizes. Now, if you look in the bottom photo here on the left, you can see just how many people go onto one boat. It doesn't matter how good the Coast Guard in a nearby country is. You can't pull that many people out of the ocean. People are gonna die regardless. If that many people go into the water in the middle of the Mediterranean on a route that wasn't discussed with any type of local authority because they're illegally trafficking other people, um, odds are they're not going to be able to readily have emergency services. Obviously, nobody's expecting to get a call for 800 people in the ocean. You can't save them all. People are going to die. And the sad thing is, a lot of the people who do die first are the children, the ones who aren't as strong swimmers. Ones who weren't given flotation devices, despite even them being not very good flotation devices. But the reasons that we need to have them in the United States is because it'll boost the economy and provide more diversity, which two things are very important. The economy will be boosted because not only will more jobs be fulfilled, but more jobs will be provided, and diversity goes a long way. I'm from Manhattan. We have a lot of diversity there, and it's good to have different types of people around you because it offers you the best parts of their culture, the best parts of their cuisine, the best parts of everything that they have, and you can give them the best parts of what you got, and everybody comes together and you get a better thing altogether. So diversity is the second thing that helps. Lastly, conclusion. Let me pull up my face again. Lastly, conclusion. We need to change the laws to allow people in because the current system is inadequate and these people deserve the opportunity to come into the United States. Um, we should also keep the border secure because it is important to stop narco trafficking and human trafficking and keep illegal immigration illegal because we cannot condone the activities that these people will attempt to come in the United States. However, they shouldn't have to attempt these things. They should be able to come in legally. We should provide the security here in the United States that we have, the security to others, and we should also provide the same opportunities that we're afforded to others as well. Um, Now, let me cover the requirements. There's 200, I mentioned this at the beginning of my presentation. There's 281 million migrants actively I'm sorry, there's 281 million migrants internationally in 2020, as according to the UN. Um, my premise is the current system is adequate for immigration. Conclusion, change the system to allow more people in. Another premise, illegal immigration is dangerous, thus therefore, conclusion, keep illegal immigration illegal as to not condone it. My argument is valid. Two potential ways that you could say I'm wrong is you could say that I generalize or make the assumption that these people attempting to come to the United States are of good nature, whereas maybe you could argue that they aren't. Or you could argue that you don't like that different culture and so you don't want people to come in. I disagree, but there's an argument, there's a fallacy. And the second one could be false dichotomy. I'm only providing two options. Either support or don't support illegal immigration. Perhaps there's a third option where people are caught and released or some other third variation. I only give two options. Um, so I have the quote, the premise conclusion, my argument's valid, two fallacies. I think that's it. I hope that's it. I hope that's it. So here's my references. I know I don't need them here. I need them on the other thing, but thank you. And I hope the audio